everybody. Mitchell Lea alongside Brandon 2, Tommy Grant, and we continue with the Christopher Nolan conversations as we did Dunkirk and Interstellar for the last one. And now, well, we were going to do something different, but no one could find Insomnia anywhere,
That's
so
not
we're not
true.
talking about Insomnia right now.
I have it on Blu-ray, Mitchell. Do you want it?
Do I want it?
No, you don't. I got it in like a Nolan 6-film like starter pack or whatever. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I
because
just have
I've
them
been on
individually,
Blu-ray.
but I don't have
Yeah.
Insomnia.
Yeah, I've been on a Blu-ray kick lately, so I got the
Yes,
Dark
you
Knight
have.
trilogy,
You
Inception,
have-
Insomnia.
We have the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants, and we can have the Brotherhood of the Traveling Nolan. And just
The
mail the Nolan
Brotherhood of
movies
the
around,
Traveling
'cause I
Nolan.
need it too.
Yeah, I can mail you the Blu-ray. You need
I
me
will
to?
also send you my pants.
I'll hang them up on the wall.
But today we're going to talk about Oppenheimer and we're going to talk about Batman Begins. So let's begin with Oppenheimer, because after this we're going to do the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises next week. So we'll finish off with Batman Begins today, starting with Oppenheimer.
We're doing an entire podcast on Oppenheimer. No, I'm just kidding.
This is the most recent movie that we have talked about so far on anything press play action related. However, we talked about it last year because Brandon and I both gave it our honor for being the number one movie of 2023.
Like
An honor I am still
movie,
very happy.
You're an idiot. I don't want to be that blunt about it.
No, because I definitely think that last year, 2023 had some other strong options, but Oppenheimer was the strongest as far as I'm concerned. Like, if you went the Holdovers, or you went Spider-Verse, or you went Killers of the Flower Moon, I can't really be too mad at you. You went Iron Claw.
No,
I'm not going to come down on you for it. But Oppenheimer was definitely my pick, of course, written, directed by Christopher Nolan, stars everyone. Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Jason Clarke, whole slew of people here.
Can we take every A-list actor in Hollywood and just be like, who wasn't in this movie?
Honestly, that's kind of what the movie felt like.
This was a $100 million budget, and it made $976 million. This movie, this R-rated 3-hour movie with black and white scenes that isn't based on an IP or anything like that, because Christopher Nolan is the hottest IP going right now. This is an 8.3 on IMDb. It's currently number 112 of all time, a 4.2 on Letterboxd. It won 7 Oscars, that being Best Picture, Best Director. Cillian Murphy won Best Actor. Robert Downey Jr. won Best Supporting Actor. Not an Oscar I would have given, but certainly not a bad performance. I would have gone with Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon personally. Best Score, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. It was also nominated for Sound, Makeup, Adapted Screenplay, Emily Blunt for Supporting Actress, Production Design, and Costume Design. And it holds the distinction. Actually, I'm not going to tell you what distinction it holds. You'll just have to guess. That's one of the questions. What distinction does this movie hold?
What distinction?
Yes.
I mean,
it is number one all time in a
specific
category.
Is it like awards total? Like wins?
No.
Okay.
No.
Nope.
Lord of the Rings holds that one.
It does. Okay, that makes sense.
I think like Titanic or something, yeah.
Titanic and Ben-Hur are like the top 3.
Yeah.
I did see 355 wins to 369 nominations is a crazy
Tommy,
percentage.
What distinction does this movie hold?
I have no idea.
This is the highest grossing movie. This is the highest grossing movie of all time to never reach number 1 at the American box office. It surpassed Sing for that total, and it was never number 1 because this was part of the Barbenheimer phenomenon, and Barbie was number 1 the entire time that Oppenheimer would have been competing for it.
So now you can Brandon and that, Tommy, and be like, like that seems weird, but Barbie appeals to
Barbie was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
So was Oppenheimer, and it's
Barbie appeals to like the masses, whereas like this is a 3-hour biopic about
This
a
still made
scientist.
nearly $1 billion.
That's the problem, because Barbie was more the entertainment side of cinema,
Sure.
whereas Oppenheimer was definitely a more niche side of cinema.
Well, it was the awards,
It was going
side.
to
It was if you know cinema, you go see this movie because it's
like,
just
I mean,
Honestly, if you know
looking at
cinema,
my wife.
you went to see both. You don't
right.
pass up a
Yeah,
Greta
fair.
Gerwig movie either.
But like,
Yeah, fair enough.
me and my wife. My wife was excited to see Barbie. I wasn't so much. I was more looking to see Oppenheimer because that's more
Wow.
down my alley. But again, Barbie kind of tailored to the masses, and that's probably what.
Did you ever see Barbie?
Yes, I did. I
What'd you
enjoyed
think
it.
about it? Yeah,
I enjoyed it. But that's the thing. It was a fun
Yeah, I like
movie.
Barbie too. Don't get me wrong.
When I say it was better in quality than Oppenheimer, not by any fucking means other than
No. I don't think so either. Barbie didn't make my top 10, but it didn't mean that I didn't love it. Brandon and I'll never forget. It's one of the movie going experiences that
Of
I
a
will
lifetime,
never,
Mitchell.
I will
Of a
never
lifetime.
forget for as long as I live, because we did
Yeah.
the Barbenheimer double feature, and we saw Barbie first. And I remember my opinion on Barbie was a lot lower because we sat next to these two jackasses that just stayed on their phone the entire time. But it was really fun seeing that movie in a crowd of people dressed up and that were like really, that wasn't Marvel, because usually that's the only time that I had ever seen
I would
anything like
argue
that.
Harry Potter. I think Harry
Mitchell,
Potter kind of started that case.
That's
Mitchell,
true
you
too.
forget
That's true
forget
too.
that the beginning of that movie, it was people in the wrong theater who were super pumped to see
That's
this movie.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just ridiculous. And
But
so
I think Oppenheimer also kind of holds a place with Barbie, and that I think they kind of started the trend of the double header, because I think
The double
Gladiator and Wicked did that this year or last year as well.
So I think that might be a new trend.
Well, they tried. They tried the Glicket thing. Glicket was not going to be the same as Barbenheimer.
Hey, they both did really well. So, and
Yeah.
I did the Glicked. I did both of them.
I did too. I did the Glicket at like 2 a.m.
But then again, I've also done like some of the dumbest double features you've ever heard of in your life. So I'm not exactly the.
I'm not the target audience for a double feature, because every time I go to the theater, I did the double feature. Yeah.
I did the Peter Rabbit 50 Shades Free double feature, so I'd need to be locked up in prison. But and you know what's funny, Tommy?
What movie?
You know what's funny, Tommy?
On that double.
Peter Rabbit.
Yeah, Peter Rabbit was the better.
But do you know what's funny about that, Tommy? Do you know who did that double feature with me?
I'm scared to ask.
Brandon 2.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Scared to ask. Brandon 2. My God, how could you sign up for that?
What we saw everything in 2017.
We also worked at a theater, so we got everything for free. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Well, on top of Movie Pass, because the summer Movie Pass will never be defeated.
But like getting to the Oppenheimer side of the Barbenheimer double feature, there were also people dressed up for Oppenheimer.
Oh my gosh! I remember
in the
that
suit
guy.
and the hat, and
yeah,
I remember thinking,
I was like,
these are my people.
This guy dressed up as Oppenheimer. I was like, this is awesome.
We got in there and we had we had prime seats for Oppenheimer and IMAX opening night.
You remember the seat? You remember the exact seat?
Yeah, it was the second row from, not like where you're craned up, but like the actual row of seats that isn't like the very bottom. It was the second row, and Brandon had the seat that was on the aisle, and I had the second seat. That's the seat that we had for Oppenheimer, and let me tell you, if that wasn't the perfect spot to watch this movie, and
turn your body and see like the whole screen, it was
so great because Barbie, again, no shade, loved Barbie, thought it was fantastic, but when Oppenheimer came on in that theater and the lights went down, everyone shut the hell up and the phones went away. And for 3 hours, people were locked in on this movie. And it was a movie that I saw at least 4 or 5 times in theaters, because when no one releases a new movie, it's just an event for me. Yeah. But this was an event in its own right. And it's something that I felt like I had to experience over and over again.
Well,
and I was disappointed when this movie was announced, because I like the sci-fi original. Give me the Inceptions, the Interstellars. Okay, he's making another biopic.
Like, Nolan's making a biopic? Ew.
And I'm like, I like it when Nolan makes movies based on true stories. He knocked Dunkirk out of the park, but like, I'd rather have an Inception or an Interstellar. But he kind of put his own, he definitely put his own stamp on this movie, and you can get that from the very beginning of the movie with how they open up and they show just like the effects that they use to kind of show the fire and the different things that Oppenheimer is seeing in his mind. And they open up with that quote about Prometheus gave fire to man, and for this he was chained to a rock and tortured for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just the perfect way to open up this movie. I don't think it could have opened up a better way. It got me right.
It's a perfect simile to Oppenheimer's life.
Exactly. Yes.
A lot of people didn't understand that quote, because I have two comments. Is one, the fact that one of the reasons, back to our comment about how it didn't make number one, I think part of the reason it didn't is because so many people that didn't understand what he was going for in this film. I think they were expecting some sort of war movie like Dunkirk, and you had a more biopic that was a little bit slower. It was very slow, but it was entertaining in the fact that it was intense. Whereas people were expecting some sort of war movie and didn't get that, and they hit the reviews. Because I remember watching the reviews, everybody's complaining like, "Oh, it was so boring. There was no action." I'm like, "Well, I wouldn't expect an action movie for someone for Oppenheimer."
You must have seen some different reviews than I did, because most of the reviews that I saw were just like glazing the shit out of it.
But that's the thing. You have the Nolan hard-ons like you that, absolutely blew up the movie to be amazing. Then you had all the people that were probably looking for something more entertaining that were like, yeah, I would rather have gone seen Barbie. And I think that's what stopped some people
you could do both.
Going to see the movie. Well, some people don't go to double features like you.
I will say this. A Nolan movie, I'm there like day one. I'm with Mitchell though. I was like Oppenheimer. I love history.
You called it early.
Yeah,
I remember Brandon texting me weeks before the movie, months before the movie came out. He said, "I really think that this has a chance to be as good as something like Inception or something. I think that people are going to leave this and it's going to be considered one of Nolan's best." And I was thinking it would fall in somewhere near Dunkirk, where I love the movie, but it's not something I put up with Nolan's best stuff. And
I just got the vibe. Right. I just got the vibes from it. Just like Mitchell, unlike you, I don't listen to reviews before I go see. Like I don't listen.
I need to knock that off.
I don't listen to like other people's opinions of the movie. I was just watching the trailer. I was like, there's something like Nolan's about to put his unique spin on this. Like he's about to do something different. And I think Oppenheimer is such like a divisive person, and what he accomplished as a human is something that like his story is very unique and is like worth telling. And so that's why I thought like, oh, this has a chance to be like one of the best movies of not only the year, but like maybe of like all time. Like this movie is going to be like a top 100 movie. And I guess now according to IMDb, it's like not right now, but yeah, I really thought this movie was going to be like special. But I was kind of with Mitchell. I wanted like another sci-fi like original from like Nolan, but when I saw the trailer and I saw what he was doing with it, I was like, oh, like now I get what he's going.
I think we're getting a new take on Nolan. I think he's kind of growing more out of his sci-fi realm, because you get movies like Dunkirk where you have
the Odyssey is like the weird one, right? Like we don't know what he's gonna do.
That's what I was leading up to, because
yeah,
you had Dunkirk, which was a big war movie, and you were able to get multiple different aspects, like point of views from that movie. Then you have
very original movie, yeah.
But then you have a biopic like Oppenheimer that brings the intensity. And that's part of the reason I loved Oppenheimer, is you have a great story, but without the crazy Nolan twists and confusion. So I was actually able to follow the movie.
Not like a Tenet. Yeah, not like a Tenet movie.
However, he does it. This is not straight up linear storytelling, which is something that you're not really going to get from Nolan for a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
In this, he finds a way to make this story so enthralling in a multitude of ways that we'll get to. I noticed something in this movie that I didn't know happened quite so soon. The famous "Can you hear the music" scene is 7 minutes into this movie. 7. You get that 7 minutes in to a 3-hour movie where
Well,
it's
I
just
love
and
that he tried to poison his professor too with the apple.
Ludwig Göransson.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yeah.
one of the best scores I've ever heard for a movie.
God, Ludwig was in his bag. He was in his
I think that it's it's one of my favorite scores of all time, and yeah, I think it's number 3 as far as Nolan movies go. I go Interstellar, Inception, Oppenheimer.
Give me
But
another score outside of like Nolan that you like love.
Social Network's got a really good one.
They're
I think
good,
that one's
good,
incredibly strong.
good.
I will never back down and say Lord
I
of the
thought you
Rings
were
is
gonna
the best
say,
score.
yeah,
Lord
Lord
of
of
the
the Rings.
Rings has my heart.
Lord of the Rings score is awesome.
Yeah, that's certainly a good one. La La Land's got a great one that I love. From Dune Part 2, obviously. From last year.
Yeah,
But
I
we'll
put
talk about that
Ludwig.
next
I
week
put Ludwig
in the
in
Hans
the
category.
Hans
I
category
think this movie
of
put
guys.
him there.
Yeah.
We
Because
might have
this
to
is
do
some
a
strong work.
standalone episode one day of just top movie composers. I think
Oh, I
that's
love it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
best scores.
Best
Um,
cinematographers next. Patrick Deakins what? No,
but this movie can be a little tough to talk about because of the way that it's told. Cillian Murphy, let's talk about him for a second. Fuck, this guy.
what
This
can
is
he
one of
do?
the
Like,
one of the best
yeah,
performances I've seen in the last 15 to 20 years. I truly think that Paul Giamatti would have won the Oscar for The Holdovers in any other year.
100% agree.
But Cillian Murphy, it's an instantly iconic performance.
Yep.
He brings so much vulnerability and so much confidence and so much wisdom, and he's able to convey all of this over this 3-hour movie where you truly feel like this person has just lived this grand life with so many experiences, so many emotions, so much stress weighing down on him. You see it as we cut back and forth throughout the movie.
You see it on his face, like the
Yeah,
facial expressions are
he
just.
has a very expressive face in this movie without needing to be over the top with it. He does a fantastic job in this movie. Christopher Nolan really put it all on Cillian Murphy. There's other great performances, but if Cillian Murphy doesn't bring it in this, it's not the same. And Cillian Murphy, I think, gives an instantly legendary performance here.
Mhm.
Um, you,
But
you find out his rapport, or rather lack thereof, with Robert Downey Jr. early in this movie, and he's great here as well. I know I said that I wouldn't have given him the Oscar, but he's
he's
still fantastic.
yeah, he Robert Downey Jr. comes on the screen and just like gives it to you for 20 minutes. And it's just like I'm going to take over the screen for 20 minutes. Um and I probably think that's why he won supporting actor. I just think what he was told to do in this movie was I need you
People
to
also
come
just like
in.
him
Yeah,
and,
that's
and, and
true.
wanted to give him an Oscar.
Yeah, no, that's
Hard
fair.
compliment.
That's completely fair because like we talk about like redemption stories and like his is like as big as it gets. Um, but I do think this was like tailored for him, where Nolan was like, Robert, I need you to come on the screen and just take it over for 20 to 15 minutes, and you're gonna be the person that like basically changes the tone of this movie and like makes it what it is in the end. But without Killian's performance, like this movie just doesn't uphold the way it does. And his range as an actor is just incredible. Like I saw him in Small Things Like These earlier this year, 2024. Um, his range as an actor in that movie. I didn't like love that movie. I gave it like a B plus, but like, and that's like a very dramatic and really messed up story. But his range as an actor is just absolutely incredible. And I
I
think we can even see that when we're talking about this double feature with Batman Begins and Oppenheimer.
Well,
his range as an actor is ridiculous. Like
I
it
was
is
gonna say, I
ridiculous.
mean, he's had so much experience working with Nolan between the Batman
Yeah.
trilogy, this Dunkirk. Um,
I mean, what can't
Inception.
I truly mean that in the most sincere way possible. What can't that man do as an actor? Like
he,
I
he
haven't
has
found a
he
movie that he
has such a
can't do.
wide, he started off a lot with more horror esque movies, with 28 Days Later and stuff like that.
Which, by the
He
way,
had,
we need to watch.
yep, we do need to
We need to
watch.
find.
We need
I,
to
I
find
think
it.
I think Peaky Blinders is where he really grew as an actor and really had that time to get some range in. And
Oh
now
yeah,
he,
because that character in Peaky Blinders, I've only seen like the first two seasons, but even in the first two seasons of that show, the range of that character is absurd.
he knows how to control a room, and that's really what he
Mhm.
got from that show. And he definitely brought that into this movie.
Yeah, because Oppenheimer is that person. Like Oppenheimer is the person where he walks into a room full of scientists. He's Oppenheimer. Like he's overshadowing Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Like they even mentioned that in the movie. They're like he basically pushed Einstein out and like made Einstein irrelevant. And I was like Jesus, like that's really impressive.
This
Like
movie
yeah,
also revitalized the career. Josh Hartnett
yeah.
early in this movie, I think he's got a small role, but he's a character that I just was always happy to see when he was on screen because he had a sort of charisma, but when he spoke, you always paid attention to what he said.
Hmm.
I really liked Josh Hartnett in this movie, and I'm glad that Josh Hartnett is having his kind of Josh Hartnett 2.0 moment. Say what you will about Trap. I liked the movie, but I loved him in it, and I think that Josh Hartnett is great here. Also, David Krumholtz as Robbie, another guy that he meets earlier in this movie. He's fantastic. Matt Damon had a great year for dad movies in 2023 between this and Air, and I
Yeah,
think that
Matt Damon killed it.
his role in this movie often gets overshadowed. Like he didn't get any Oscar attention for this, and I think that's kind of a shame because he's fantastic here as well. His complicated relationship with Oppenheimer uh, was something that I enjoyed seeing throughout. But really, this movie is broken up into a few different pieces where you've got Oppenheimer and his scientists, and they're kind of getting nuclear physics going in the United States. Because as he kind of says earlier in the movie, no one's really taking it seriously in the United States. That's why I have to go and kind of make people take it seriously.
Yep.
And he has people kind of like almost like a cult like following of people like that are just like fascinated with what he's doing. Then the splitting of the atom happens. And I thought that scene was really funny because they're like, no, there's no way that this thing could possibly get done. And one of his students is like, I'm going to go try it in the other room. And then he does it.
Hold my
I thought
beer.
that was really funny. Like just how how these breakthroughs were taking place in that point in time. And then one of the quotes that I really liked from this movie was when Josh Hartnett's character tells Killian Murphy, like, I kind of need you to knock it off with the political stuff. People don't need you need to be thinking that you're a communist because you're not just self-important, you're actually important.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that quote really, and it stuck with me throughout the movie because it shows just how dependent people were on this guy, and you really feel that over the course of the movie, just how many people they have to build this town when you get started with the Manhattan Project, and he's basically the president of this town.
Yeah.
Like it's all on him. In the first
Especially
hour or so,
there's that scene in I forget the scientist's name, but the one scientist was like looking to leave. He's like, I quit. And the guards weren't letting him leave, and he was basically like, they're not holding you, I am.
yeah.
Like
But
Oppenheimer
I
was in full
also
control.
but I also like that he was charismatic with the people that he worked with. He said,
Yeah.
"All right, I'll let you do what you want to do. 1 hour a week, you and I will talk about this. We'll go over it." And that was Benny Safdie as Teller in the movie. Who I don't know if you've seen him in much, but seeing him in Good Time as Robert Pattinson's brother, and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret as the father. This guy has just a shocking amount of range. Um, and it's a
Mhm.
great director as well. So that was a shockingly good performance in this movie. Tommy, you didn't see this in theaters, did you? You missed out.
No, that
So you saw this for the first time this week.
I watched it. All the lights were off. I wanted to make as good of a cinematic experience as possible.
What was your biggest takeaway from the first half of the movie?
Well, I have to say, because the fact that most of the Nolan movies that were new for me that I've watched, it usually took me a couple of times to get into it, just because of how like convoluted and tough they were to watch. This gripped
I
me
mean, fuck
instantly.
you, but okay.
It's not a negative note. It was just, I'm usually tired and it's hard to get into those kind of movies. Whereas this one, it gripped me right away and I was sucked in. Like I was tuned in. I watched it till about 3 o'clock in the morning.
God, we love that. Oh my
That,
lord,
Like,
that's what
I
I did.
was
That's
sucked
what I did
in.
with
that's
Batman
what we
Begins.
did. We just did it in the theater.
Yeah, we just did it in the
I
theater.
was so like, but again, I'm also a big history geek. So like, this was like right in my alley. Again,
Yeah,
I like more of the action type movies, but this had enough
I'm a history
intensity
minor.
behind it that I was like, all right, this is good.
I'm a
And,
history minor. This is like peak. Like if you're a history minor, history major, history buff, like yeah, this is
yeah,
peak.
and it definitely brought in some notes that I think a lot of people didn't realize, like especially like, the whole Communist Party aspect of this movie. A lot of people think the Communist Party, was the whole cause of the Cold War. People don't realize it was going on during this time frame too,
Oh
and
yeah,
you have the
I
McCarthyism
whole
was
ran
I was so
rampant.
overwhelmed by this movie. I bought the book.
Oh,
damn,
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
very nice.
So
Okay,
I'll read it at some point. But yeah, I got it with the Escape Artist. I got like 50% off. Like by the stuff.
nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that I too have a massive stack of books that I will eventually read because I just don't have time to read
I
everything.
might audiobook it because I'm an audiobook person now. But
As
I
in,
I love that. I just love like Oppenheimer's like story. He's a complicated person and I do think Nolan touches on that. Like yes, he's an American hero. He did all this stuff, but he had real problems and he had to come to grips with I created this weapon that basically wipes out
and
entire
I
cities.
think it was a
And I
very
think that's like a huge thing in this movie.
very cool scene with when they were basically doing the interrogation of him, all the public hearings, and they'd always have kind of like a witness or someone in the background.
It was not supposed to be interrogation, but yes, it
It,
felt
it
like an
was
It
essentially
basically
interrogation.
it was
was.
It was a
essentially an
public hearing.
interrogation.
Yeah, the hearing. Yeah, the hearing. Yeah.
And I absolutely love because obviously this man created a weapon so massive that like its implications were unheard of. But then you have the whole conversation with his wife in the background of the room saying, "Hey, how come you went to go see this girl? That's part of the Communist Party." Like the whole fact, like he has so many problems outside of just the fact that he created a weapon. He's got problems at home too, like a regular person.
Yeah, he's a
And
complicated individual.
I hate whenever I see people that say like, "Oh, this was just an unnecessary scene of nudity."
Yeah,
I
I
think that
actually.
scene
It
in
was an
the
odd,
in the
it was an odd
boardroom,
scene how they shot it, but I think it was important.
I liked the way that they
I
did
want.
that because
Yeah,
it was a really interesting way of showing not just the way that Oppenheimer felt talking about this in front of a room of people, but especially Emily Blunt and how she felt like you don't need to volunteer this information. Now it's a part of the record. Why the
Yeah,
hell did you do that?
I think it
right.
was a very unique scene
You're.
because it was showing his. Everybody's like, it was why is he nude in the scene? It's showing how vulnerable he is as a person in these scenes. Like he is literally, his whole life is going out to the public.
Yeah, that's what I think. To be fair, I think the two like or three nude scenes, like the first sex
Three.
scene. Yeah, the first sex scene, like take it or leave it. Where like I personally don't mind when they're having sex and he
That
says
was
that
the
quote.
goofiest scene in the
That
movie.
was the goofiest scene, but I think it actually worked. Based off of, I just think it was really funny. I think Nolan was trying to be funny, where he's finishing and he's like, "I am from ABSR,"
If
like
if
that.
if
So he's
I
funny.
if I
But
could bet on when the I am become death destroyer of worlds first reference in the movie would be,
It would
I
not
would
be
have
a
been
sex scene.
I would have been very wrong. I would have been very
Yeah,
incorrect.
yeah, yeah.
I've been
I
very wrong.
will. I will say the next two scenes with nudity and the other sex scene where they're just sitting there talking, like it just shows, like you're saying, Tommy, like the vulnerability of both characters because they're very like open with each other, and Oppenheimer knows that like the person he's basically telling like, well, we can't keep doing this, like this affair stuff like can't happen. He knew that she was like at a breaking point, and
Yeah.
he said it to her anyway, and like that's where it's like the complication of like Oppenheimer as a person, like yeah, it's I think those scenes were necessary, but so I don't always like when people are like, oh, that those two nude scenes are like unnecessary. No, I think they show like the vulnerability of the characters with inside of like the plot, basically.
The first
This is
half of
my
this
take on it.
movie is really, really fantastic.
Yeah,
Second half of this movie, though, is where this thing really climbs up the rankings for me
Oh
because
yeah.
not
right.
only do you have the Trinity test scene, which I thought this movie was going to
Josh
end.
Peck clicking the button is
I,
the sickest
I
moment.
thought
It's
That's the thing.
like,
Talk about an actor who did not belong in this movie.
fuck
Where did
that.
he
Josh
come
Peck is cool.
him and Jack Quaid.
But like, it was just like Jack Quaid. I can at least understand because he's been in more action type movies. Josh Peck has just been in kids movies and kids TV shows. I'm like, where is he coming from? Like, where did Chris Nolan be like? You know what?
Josh Peck has range,
You're the
motherfucker.
guy.
I want Josh Peck to be the one to press the button, and you know
Yeah,
what? It worked for me. Uh,
it was
I
great.
thought this movie was going to end with the bomb dropping.
That's interesting.
So
You
when
really thought it.
Trinity happened, because I had no idea about the specifics of Oppenheimer's life.
Mhm.
So the Trinity test happens, and it is so tense because this is something that has
We
never
gotta
happened
put
before.
the stuff on our nose. We gotta put
And
the
so
glasses
you've got them all like taking bets on like what's
if they're
gonna
gonna
happen.
die, basically. Like,
Um, and there's just so much tension around it, and I liked the fact because the meme before the movie was like watching Barbie when the theater next door is playing Oppenheimer and the bomb drops,
Yep.
and it's just like boom, but there's no sound,
mm,
and it's a delayed thing because that's how it would have been, which
Mhm.
I should have expected because Nolan is going to do this as scientifically as he possibly can. He's going to
Yes,
be
he did.
correct about this as much as he possibly can. And I really enjoyed that about this scene and how tense it was. It's one of the best directed scenes of Christopher Nolan's career. And then afterwards, the speech that Oppenheimer gives. And this just made me go, Nolan, maybe let's do a horror movie. Because what Nolan does with that scene when Oppenheimer's giving the post Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb drop speech, the choices that he makes there were incredible.
are you specifically referencing like when the skin is peeling off of
The
the?
skin's peeling off. There's a random. There's just like one scream to start things off. The use of light.
Mm,
Everyone kind of leaving the room, and then boom, there's a noise, and you hear everyone celebrating. No, Oppenheimer's walking, and his foot is like going through like a charred body. Um, it's incredibly well done, and it's something that I just I remember watching it for the first time and having goosebumps.
right.
Also, I was just frightened because that shit got loud, and
It
we
did
were in
get
an
loud.
IMAX theater, and I did not expect it.
Yeah, yeah. Same with like. Thank God we didn't watch this in Dolby because I can imagine the subwoofer behind you when you're not expecting. You'd be like,
Yeah,
oh crap! Like it's a little intense.
everyone is dead now.
Um, but this is kind of what I was getting at earlier. Like he gives credence to the wrestling with like just the impact of making a weapon like that
They
and
also
being
did that
like,
with the Truman scene.
yeah,
with Gary Oldman stealing the show for like a minute and a half
Yeah.
as
Well,
President Truman.
I used to take vacations there, so I guess we won't drop it there. I'm like
Yeah.
that is so like
They care who dropped it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They don't care who made it; they care who dropped it. Like that is, yeah.
And the
That's
whole
some
kind
crazy
of
stuff.
the kind of fight between the scientists and the politicians and Oppenheimer kind of doing his best
In the
to
middle of it, yeah.
yeah, but kind of doing and as well as the military and kind of doing his best to be as accommodating as he can as a way of I don't want to say distancing himself from the decisions that are being made. And then at the end, you kind of see that it's been weighing on him this whole time and that he never really was able to distance it. He knows that he put this out into the world and it's on
Mitchell,
him. The blood's on his hands.
I don't know if this is the exact burn victim you're talking about, but did you know Flora Nolan, his daughter, was
Yep.
one of the burn victims? Okay, yeah.
That was the one, the close up one that they show. That was
Yeah, the
Christopher
close
Nolan's
up,
daughter.
that
Yep,
was his daughter. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I did know that. Um,
Yeah, I just think the decisions made in the second half of the movie are exceptional. Like it's exceptional editing, it's exceptional storytelling, and it just drives the plot. And you don't feel like it's a 3 hour movie. You get to like the hour and a half, 2 hour mark, and you're like, oh, we keep going. Like the Trinity test happens, and you're like, let's go, like let's keep going. Like, what are
That's
you
the
I
beautiful
didn't
part of that scene
know
too.
there
Is
was
like
going to be
it's at
another
that little
hour.
moment. It's like it's at that perfect time where like it's starting to go like nothing big and crazy's happened yet, and that's probably where a lot of people are starting to drop off. And then you have that scene, and it just completely blows your mind because again, Nolan is incredible and loves to use practical effects. The fact that they didn't CGI this and did this with practical effects, again, just blows my mind. I cannot wait to see what he does with the Odyssey movie because again, it's nothing going to be to this proportion because how the fuck do you reenact a nuclear bomb on practical effects? But
If he
still,
drops a nuke in the Odyssey,
he
Yeah,
always does this because you had that plane crash in Tenet that was
yeah.
all used practical effects. Now you have a fucking nuclear explosion with practical effects. What is next? Like, how do you?
He's gonna
they
put
actually
people on the
sent Matthew
sea.
McConaughey through a wormhole and a black hole, all sorts of holes. Matthew
Um,
McConaughey.
in the Odyssey, he's gonna send someone, 28 days across the sea
Dude, I don't know.
in the Black Sea or whatever it is in this tiny wooden boat because that's what it's about.
Yeah,
I
just
don't know. I'm interested in the practical effects aspect of it all because like he didn't need to do that, and he was like, "No, I want
nobody in
to
their
do
right
that."
mind would say, "Hey, let's try and reenact a nuclear explosion with practical effects." No one would do that, but Nolan did it, and it was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah,
I think Emily Blunt really shines towards the end of this movie as
yeah,
well,
she
as
does.
she is more like, you need to fight this. Why aren't you fighting it? And he's kind of resigned himself to, I kind of need this to happen. And there's a line at the end of the movie where she says, like, if you think if they let you, if they you let them tar and feather you, that the world will forgive you, and it's just
He's almost
clearly
acting
not the
like a
case.
martyr, and he's not a martyr. Like he's
Yeah.
complicit in what happened, basically. Yeah.
But the entire movie is kind of going back and forth with these meetings. Jason Clarke as Roger Robb is fantastic in this. Does a great job. You find out that Robert Downey Jr. was kind of behind this whole thing because he was extremely vindictive towards Oppenheimer and things that he said. And the entire movie, you're kind of wondering, like, okay, so what did Einstein and Oppenheimer talk about? Like that question's kind of at the back of your mind the whole movie, and you don't know that it's leading towards that answer until you get there. And they have that conversation, and the movie came out about a year and a half ago now, so I don't know how comfortable I am giving this distinction. It might be my favorite movie ending. The ending to
Wow.
this movie is unbelievably great. On every possible level. The fact that it's a movie that it's based on true events, but it's being told in this way that you don't know where it's going to end. Like, what
Mhm.
note is it going to leave you with? And it answers this question in a way where, one, it's a complete put down of Strauss, Robert Downey Jr.'s character, because they weren't talking about him at all. They were talking about the implications of what they did. And Ludwig
Right.
Göransson goes off the final
Can we give
score.
credit to Tom Conti as like Albert
As
Einstein?
Albert Einstein was
His like
incredible
his
in
expression at the
this.
very end when he like turns to Oppenheimer and goes like, "Oh shit!" Like you might be right. Like he stops for a second and then just like walks past Strauss, and it's like,
And I think that was a perfect way to end the movie because the fact that most people would think in a biopic you would end on the person's death because obviously Oppenheimer's been dead for a long time. He died in I think 67
mhm.
in Princeton, New Jersey. Go New Jersey.
Hey,
Um, but it's like I think it was cinematic in the way that they ended it where his life ended because
Yeah, that's a
the
good
whole
point.
line, now I become death. He got to see
Destroyer of worlds.
he got to live to see through most of the Cold War where literally it was people saying who can build a bigger bomb, who can take this technology and make it more destructive.
Hmm.
And that's all humanity has really done. I mean, it still hasn't ended. The nuclear war impact is still going on to this day. Everybody's still trying to make them. Everybody's still trying to threaten to use them. It hasn't stopped.
Hmm.
So in a sense, it did destroy the world because everybody like this is the pinnacle weapon that people can just simply say, "Hey, we have this. We can use it. We can kill millions of people if we wanted to."
I think mad and mutually assured destruction, and that being like just knowing in the background that if something was to ever happen again, I just it's like yeah, you're right, Tommy. The way they ended that movie, it kind of ends like with Oppenheimer. Like yes, there's other stuff that happens in Oppenheimer's life, but the way they end that movie, basically is just like wow, I really have become like destroyer
Like
of
I'm no longer a scientist. I'm now the madman that created the nuclear bomb.
right, I am that guy. And then Albert Einstein is like, I am also complicit in this. Like, I helped them figure out those problems and like this. Like, like if I hadn't done my stuff as a scientist, like, would we even be at this point? And it's like, yeah, and it's just very interesting to think about that scene and like Mitchell Killian's look into the camera is incredible.
instantly
I
iconic.
yeah, I don't know
Instantly.
if you can top that. Like
No,
yeah.
that scene alone won him an Oscar, and there's 2 hours and 58 minutes of brilliance before it. But the emotional impact of that last scene is something that it's just priceless in a movie, and it's something that this movie was able to bring that very few are able to do. Um, Tommy, I'll let you go ahead and start off with the grading portion of things because I'm interested to see your
I'm gonna make
perspective
you
as
a happy
someone
man,
that saw it
Mitchell.
most recently.
As everyone who's listened to this knows, Mitchell has been always disappointed with my scores of Nolan movies, and
Consistently.
today I will rate this an A plus, 92%.
All right.
It is up
Oh
there.
Very
my
nice.
It
god,
is
let's
a top
go.
movie.
Nice. Okay, so that means it is cream of the crop.
Yes.
Very nice.
That is
Did you have a favorite scene?
I mean, I think it goes to show that the nuclear explosion was just. I mean, you
Turing
can't beat
test?
you can't beat the intensity of that scene and how realistic it was. I mean, you can't beat that, especially knowing that it was made with practical effects. It's just
Yeah.
top top of the notch. You can't beat it.
All right. Brandon?
so I did not get to rewatch this before the podcast, but I've seen this movie so much that yeah, it still sticks with me. Like Mitchell, I saw it. I want to say 5 times in theaters and three
We saw it
since.
multiple times together.
Um, yeah, multiple times together. Yeah. Um, I can't believe Tommy bested me in terms of score. A plus 89.3 is the score I have it as, and that is what I last ended off when I saw it for the 8th time. Was 80 plus 89.3.
Well, I hate the fact that I am technically the low man on this.
You suck.
Um, I am technically the low man on this, and I hate that because an A plus 87.08
Is an awesome movie.
should not be the low man at all.
Yeah.
I love this movie in ways that I didn't think that I was going to. I think that it is top 2 best movie of the decade so far. I think it is the most. I think that if you were to say what is the most impactful movie of the 2020s so far, I do think that Oppenheimer would be the movie to get that. Um, I think this is the most important movie of the 2020 so far. I'm glad that it had the box office success that it did, and Christopher Nolan basically is a blank check for the rest of his life to make whatever he wants because he made a 3-hour movie with a bunch of talking, not based on any IP, against the biggest movie of the year, R-rated, 3 hours long, and made very nearly $1 billion. Christopher Nolan, you will be able to make whatever you want for the rest of your life, and
Well,
I
that's what he
cannot
plans to do with
wait.
the Odyssey because he's already said the Odyssey has the biggest budget of all films he's ever made.
And I can't wait to see
I
it, and it
mean,
will, yeah,
I
and
hope they make 3 Trojan horses. Like
yeah,
I'm here for it.
and one of them's going up my ass. Like I can't wait for this. All right,
Okay.
let's
How do we
let's.
transition from this? I mean, my God.
All right, so Batman Begins.
Season pros.
For those of you who don't know, this is where Batman begun. This movie came out June 15th,
This was the start of
2005.
Batman.
It was because he died a tragic death with George Clooney in Batman and Robin. Directed by
AKA Bat
Christopher
Nipples,
Nolan,
Bat Nipples.
Holy
of
mother of God.
course. Starring Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes only for one movie, but Katie Holmes nonetheless. Gary Oldman, Cillian Murphy again, hello, Tom Wilkinson, and Morgan Freeman. This movie had a $150 million budget, and it made $373 million. Things were definitely different. And I think that if this movie hadn't gotten the reception that it did, as far as just people liking the movie, I don't think we would have gotten a sequel. I think that if it was just a movie, people went, "Yeah, no, it was good. It was a good movie." Wouldn't have gotten a sequel. But the fact that people loved it as much as they did, they said, "All right, I think we can," because it wasn't some giant success, especially overseas. And then The Dark Knight happened, and it's like, oh, we were absolutely correct for continuing this franchise.
Honestly, I would go on the table and say that I think Christopher Nolan revolutionized superhero movies and allowed the
Yeah,
MCU to happen.
absolutely,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100%.
I will say he didn't have the green light to do the trilogy.
It was just one where the movie didn't really do great financially, and so if it didn't get the reception that it got, and they just kind of took, they kind of just said, all right, we've got really good word of mouth, we know that everyone that came to see this will see the next one, and more so, then we'll be all right. And they were absolutely correct in
Yeah,
that assumption.
100%. I'm almost shocked. Like what in a world where The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, like those movies don't happen. Um, makes me it's just intriguing like thought exercise. Like would they can this movie?
Well, it's
You
interesting.
know, can this
It's
project
an
basically.
instance where Christopher Nolan made a sequel to a movie.
I mean, I don't think he has he?
This is the only one.
God, we need to get him in the 28 Days franchise. Speaking of horror,
By the way, do you know who was the first person to get offered the role as Batman for this movie? It was
so
not Christian Bale.
yeah, it wasn't
That I
Bale
do not
first.
know.
Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, John Hartnett.
Oh,
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
So, I like Christian Bale in this role. I think Hartnett would have done fine too, but I'm glad that they went with Bale.
Yeah.
This is an
Okay, let's
8.2
be
on IMDb,
yeah.
number 130 of all time, 3.8 on Letterboxd. Bunch of haters.
Letterboxd. People don't know. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
What was the only Oscar this movie was nominated for?
I would go for score.
No.
Not
Cin-
cinematography.
Yeah, cinematography.
Cinematography.
Yeah, that's what I
is
thought.
correct.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah,
for
I was in my head. I was thinking cinematography. Yeah.
And for the second trivia question, this movie was released in June of 2005, and it was number 1 at the box office for 2 weeks. What movie pushed Batman Begins down to number 2 in its third weekend?
Jesus Christ. I'm trying to think of movies that even came out in 2005.
Oh, was it Star Wars?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew one of you was going to say that, and it's also wrong.
It's wrong. Oh
No, that's the incorrect answer.
So then it's I don't even know. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is the only other one I can think
I'm
of.
looking at 2005
No.
movies.
That was
Is
number
it-
1 before Batman Begins.
Before
Is
Batman
it
Begins.
Kingdom of Heaven?
No.
Interesting. If you say The Longest Yard, I will be pissed.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh,
I don't know. War of the Worlds because it's
There
got
you
Tom
go.
Cruise.
That's it.
I've never seen that movie. My mom made me boycott it.
It's
'cause
fine.
Cruise is
It's kind of forgettable, to be honest.
so Star Wars didn't.
Star
Or
Wars
was
came
Star
out
Wars
in
before?
Star Wars came out in May.
Oh, it was May. Okay.
Yeah, no, Star Wars came out in May.
That's so weird that War of the Worlds would have knocked it out. But I mean, it's Tom Cruise coming off of whatever he was coming off.
and
of.
it was also his third weekend, so it was definitely
It was
it
losing
had
steam.
it was making
It was
at
going. It
15
was
points.
going with Herbie Fully Loaded, by the way. The release date wise, yeah. Or
That
like
was the following week.
the following week was Herbie
Yeah.
Fully Loaded. Yeah. So
Yeah.
interesting. The Perfect
all right,
Man
so-
was the other one. Yeah, that's interesting.
So this movie is about a young Bruce Wayne and him beginning to be, you guessed it, Batman.
what? No way.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, can I tie this into something that Tommy said at the beginning of the podcast?
Of course, you can
Sisterhood-
always use my words.
The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants also released on June 1st of that year.
Oh, fuck me.
Wait, really?
What a
Yeah,
great
it did.
segue, man. Thank
I
you.
Why
put up the June box office after you answered the question. I thought it was funny.
Very nice.
Yeah, Batman Begins. Of course, he goes Batman.
I think this was where Christopher Nolan, I think this is where he did his own spin on Batman, because the 4 movies that came out prior to this were Batman already existed. There was no Batman origin.
There's no Bruce Wayne origin story.
Yeah, it was kind of like
movie.
it was kind of assumed in all those movies. Like everybody knew Batman's origin, so they just made it with Batman already existing. Whereas this, you got to see Batman, especially in the beginning. It was odd. Like you see him in like an Asian prison, fighting all these inmates. You're like, what is going on? Like,
And
how is
I
this Bruce
am
Wayne?
the devil.
Like,
You're
how
not
is
the
this
devil.
Bruce Wayne? Like,
You're just practice.
Yeah. And there's that great quote from the the prison guards, like, "Oh, we're not security for you. We're
Protection for them. Protection.
I don't
for
need
them.
protection. Protection for them. Yeah.
But it's like,
And then Liam Neeson pops up,
Yeah.
and
So-
Liam Neeson is just
A
like
legend.
pimped out in his coat.
I don't
This-
want to
in this
start.
suit.
I don't want to start the movie. I don't want to start like early on this, but I'll ask the question. Favorite character.
Of this movie.
And why is it? And why is
In
it
thi- in
Liam
this
Neeson?
movie?
And why is it Liam Neeson as Ducard?
Okay, mine is not Liam Neeson, but
It's
Liam
not Liam
Neeson
Neeson.
was really good in this movie as this movie came out 20 years ago. Ra's al Ghul.
Well, he's Ducard.
No, he's fucking Ra's al Ghul.
He's
Way
Ducard
to
for
make us feel
80% of the
old.
movie.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
he's Ducard for 80% of the movie. So
Who the hell is the Ducard? Yeah, he's Ra's al Ghul.
Which was, I think,
also Kent Watanabe was the fill-in, the stand-in Ra's al Ghul.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it was funny. Like was Christopher Nolan expecting us to be like confused? Like, was this supposed to be a trick? Like, I think everybody was like, yeah, no, pretty sure Liam Neeson is Ra's al Ghul. Like, there's no.
But
Like,
that's
but
the way.
If you
That's
don't know
the way you
story-
do it.
If you don't know the story, then
he was too
you'd
big
be
of an
like,
actor not to be.
yeah, fair.
That's the way you do it. You don't do it the way Iron Man 3 did it, where you take the big, scary, the guy that you came for, and you're like, oh yeah, he's nobody. Here's this other guy.
And then you
take
reference
the
him
guy
10
that
years
you
later in Shang-Chi.
Yeah, you get fuck that. You take the guy that you saw with, you got more screen time with, and you reveal him to be a bigger guy. That's the way you do it. And so I really liked that. But they also have some good screen time together, talking about like what, how do you want to go about this? Are you going to avenge your father's death? Are you looking to become a vigilante? How do you overcome your fear?
Can I give you my pitch for why it's Liam Neeson as best character?
Absolutely.
Our favorite character?
Let's hear it.
You said it, Mitchell. He's on the screen the most with him. He makes Christian Bale Batman. He is in his head. He goes, you're weak like your father. He couldn't stand up to this guy, and he's like, I've had years of training, and he's like,
Passion
training is
the
nothing.
weakness your enemies will not share.
Right, training is
And then
nothing. It is all about will. And
But Bruce Wayne is like, that's why it's so important to have, because it separates me from them. And I think that this did a really good job of kind of setting up that, and I think it can be debated a little bit about, okay, are you actually a no-kill Batman, or are you a no-kill, like, I'm not going to shoot you in the head Batman? But as far as the whole Joe Chill thing, and that he's going to kill the guy that killed his parents, but then someone else kind of beats him to it.
Well, come on.
And
Falcone was
like,
not going to let that slide. Let's be real.
What'd you guys think about the scene where he meets up with Falcone and that shady?
Oh, that was awesome. Can I just say, God, who's Falcone's character?
I wasn't as crazy about.
No. Tom Wilkinson. Tom Wilkinson killed it.
I like Tom Wilkinson, but
Tom Wilkinson killed it.
I think that if I have, I don't think this is a perfect movie.
No, I don't.
It is definitely, of the three, this is my least favorite of the Dark Knight trilogy.
There's holes, and there's like jumping around, and there's like weird things in it. I do agree with that.
This movie does not suffer from the same problem that Spider-Man 3 did, as far as too many villains to that extent. But I do think there's a little too much going on, as far as like, you have Wilkinson, you have Cillian Murphy, and you have Liam Neeson going on. And I think that this movie could have done without, and I'm going to go to hell for saying this, but I think it could have done without the whole Scarecrow bit.
No, stop.
I liked Scarecrow, but of the three, he's the one that I cared about the least.
That's fine, but Scarecrow was probably my second favorite character, to be honest. Like, I like Cillian's character.
By Ra's al Ghul. That was
yeah. Because Mitchell, if you look at it this way, Ra's al Ghul is the actual villain, but then he has an arm of Scarecrow and Carmine Falcone. Like the League of Shadows is controlling everything. So I understand. At the end of the day, it's one villain, but it's split into like three different attack areas. If that makes sense.
My favorite character of this movie was Morgan Freeman, personally.
Okay,
I think that Morgan Freeman
is a solid 3 for me. A solid 3 for me. I think he's even better as the trilogy goes on, but that's just me.
And I honestly think that Michael Caine was a strong contender for that title in this movie. I think that this might be, like, Alfred in this whole trilogy, and of course we'll
Mm-hmm.
get to Dark Knight Rises later on. But I think
Best
that
Alfred ever.
I think that Michael Caine in this role, any Alfred that we've seen afterwards, like I'm willing to see, like Gary Oldman is amazing as
I
Commissioner
enjoyed
Gordon,
Gary Oldman. I enjoyed Andy Serkis, but
but I
Michael
think that
Caine,
Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, like he could end up being even better. No one's touching Michael Caine as Alfred. Like that was just perfect.
and I'm sorry, but Michael Caine was my favorite character of this movie because no one
Mm.
can talk shit to Batman like Michael Caine can on an
Yeah.
Yeah,
average
fair.
day. Like the whole
Fair.
scene where he comes in where the mansion's burning down. He's like, "What's the point of doing all these bloody push-ups if you can't even lift a log?" Like
Yeah.
Got
it,
him.
it was perfect. Like
But
I
it's
love
his
it.
way of in Michael Caine's kind of the way of he's not the comic relief character, but he's a way of injecting levity into the story.
Mm.
And especially once we get into stuff like The Dark Knight, when the movie takes extremely dark turns, um,
Pun intended.
this movie had a little bit more, I don't want to say humanity than those two, but there was a little bit more of that like personal struggle of trying to become this symbol that, you know, as a man I can be locked up, I can be killed, whatever, but as a symbol I can inspire and all of that. um and so this movie kind of takes on a much different tone than the other ones do, and it definitely feels the most unique to itself than being a part of a trilogy the way that the other three are, because this Gotham feels much different in this movie than it does in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. This feels it feels dirtier. It feels a little less realistic because like The Dark Knight feels like any city that you've been to, but it has its own character, but it feels very much like New York City or Chicago, whereas Gotham in this movie feels
Isn't it
almost a
technically
little bit
supposed to
like
be? Isn't
New
Gotham
York.
technically supposed to be New Jersey, New
Yeah,
York?
New
Okay,
York.
yeah, yeah.
But technically, or not technically, this Gotham reminded me a little bit of like baby steps to the Batman Gotham, the Gotham we got in the Robert Pattinson, where I think that Gotham was the most strong
A
representation
little
of like
unhinged.
this
Yeah.
shit has just gone way off the rails.
Well, I think because the Batman most people are used to is the criminal underground version of Batman, because that's what we got with the original Batman and Batman Returns. You get a little
Batman
bit of
and Robin.
you get a little bit of wonkiness with the villains, but then you start introducing the classic villains like, you know, Poison Ivy, Doctor Freeze, and, you know, all these other characters like Scarecrow, and then you get that kind of like sci-fi psych thriller type villains in there that kind of throw a wrench into the whole criminal
Hmm.
underground aspect, and that's where Batman kind of has that unique flex where they can play the criminal underground side of the villains, but also have these crazy villains
That's
that come out
why.
of nowhere.
That's why Mitchell. You asked, how do I feel about Carmine Falcone? I'm here for it because I think Tom Wilkinson. I think that scene where he looks him dead in his eyes and he says, "You're Bruce Wayne, but I have no hesitation to shoot you in the face right now. Like I
Mhm.
will shoot you in front of this judge, this county commissioner, these two off-duty cops. Like I bought the underground. Like you don't that he and he goes, that's real power. Like to
Yeah,
me." That was the turning point of the movie where I was like, oh shit, Christian Bale was like figuring out like I can't, or Bruce Wayne's figuring out like I can't just stand by and let Carmine Falcone like ruin this city basically.
yeah.
Like
That
I
was
need
his
to do
realization
something.
that the system was truly broken and that he was
Yeah,
the element to
because it
fixing it.
was broken. Like there was five people in there with influence, and Falcone says to him dead in his face, "I will shoot you and have no consequences. I won't even go to like trial for it. Like, I will shoot you in this club right now, and everything will go on as it always goes on." And then at the very end of that meeting, he goes, "You think you know real pain because your parents died? You haven't felt desperation." And I think at that point we start to see like the desperation that like Bruce Wayne's character kind of goes through. So that's why I like it as like storytelling mechanism, Mitchell, as you would say.
What do we think about Katie Holmes? Because this is something that has been kind of a talking point of this movie
Eh,
for nearly 2 decades
I
now.
gotta be honest. I think she kind of crushed it. I wasn't
I don't
expecting her to be that good at it, and
I
I
don't
thought
have
she was
anything
pretty good.
positive or negative to say
Yeah.
about her because I don't think her character really had much weight in this film other than kind of having that one conversation with Bruce when Bruce reveals that he was going to kill Falcone. And I think that's where
Mhm.
like her really only major scene to shine really was. And I think she did fine, but there was nothing about her character in this movie that was like, nothing
I
to
mean,
rave
her
about. But
only other roles outside of this movie, right before that, are Dawson's Creek and Disturbing Behavior, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know what the reason for her recasting was, but if it was based on performance, I don't think there's anything in her performance that would say, yeah, you should recast her.
hmm
I the first Batman movie that I saw was The Dark Knight. So this was definitely the second version that I saw. I will say I think that Katie Holmes did well, but I think Maggie Gyllenhaal did better.
okay,
And
fair.
so I can't say that I'm
I can't even
frustrated with
argue
the.
that. Yeah, I
I
can't
think
even argue
Maggie
that.
Gyllenhaal was really good in that role, whereas Katie Holmes was solid
But
in this. I
would
don't think
would
that
she have? But that's also
she's the
because her
stain on
character
the
had
movie
such
that
a bigger
some people
role in the
think that
Dark
she
Knight.
was.
Yeah, I don't understand because I'll stand by. I think she kind of crushed it based off of like people relatively didn't know who she was. Like, I mean, I don't understand like what she did that people like hate. Like
By the
I
way,
like her. I like her in this movie. I just think Maggie
she
Gyllenhaal is better at the end of the day.
she was not fired. They wanted to bring her back for the Dark Knight.
I mean, that makes
She
sense.
could not return because of scheduling. She was signed up to be in another movie.
Oh, then
Name that movie.
jeez.
Name that movie.
Seeing as how I don't really know her cinematography history, I have no idea what
I
movie.
mean, just looking at her IMDb, like I don't even know Eli Stone, Mad Money, like
Mad Money. She skipped out on the Dark Knight
for
to
Mad
make
Money.
Mad Money.
Yeah,
And that's
She
probably a
they
decision
couldn't
she
push it
probably
back
regretted for the
to
rest of her career.
2009. Like that's where I'm like, they couldn't push it back another year. Like
the dark. You're not. No, you're not saying we're gonna put the Dark Knight on hold because of Mad Money
for
and
Katie
Katie
Holmes.
Holmes. You
Yeah,
say fuck Katie Holmes. Who's available? We'll recast this shit. No.
fair enough. I mean, just looking at her page, like she wasn't in a lot of stuff before 2005. Stuff that people wouldn't know. Like Dawson's Creek was the biggest thing she was in. So I just, yeah, that's not that that's like a Mitchell. You know, people like to talk about Apex Mountain. That might be her like turning point where she made the wrong decision by not being in the Dark
Yes.
Knight trilogy under Bad Bunny.
Do you know what movie she would be in later?
Oh man, Logan Lucky.
Jack and Jill.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. She is known for Jack and
Katie
Jill. Yeah. She's
so after this movie, Katie Holmes' career surely did go down the hill after Batman Begins. So, which strangely enough, Brandon, she was nominated for a Razzie for her
for this
role in
movie.
Batman Begins,
What
which is
I stand by me
insane.
saying she
I don't
crushed it.
That
I
is
don't.
that is too much.
What did she do wrong? Someone explain to me. Someone explain to me what she did in this movie that was terrible.
Yeah, I was not
I
I'm not a fan of that.
I mean, okay. I'll walk back. She crushed it. Like, okay, she was very good, like you said, Mitchell. Like, what did she do? Like, I just don't. Yeah, I liked her character. I thought she added like a little bit of venom. Like no, Bruce, you suck as a person.
They
See you
felt
later.
like
Like,
I
yeah,
bought the whole like they were
yeah, I did
childhood
too.
friends and like I bought all that. I felt the history between those two characters with them
Same.
in a way that I feel a little less with Maggie Gyllenhaal, but I think that Maggie Gyllenhaal as an actress brought a little bit more to that performance in The Dark Knight. But then again, that movie, we'll get to it later. Yeah, this movie again, it's just kind of setting up Batman as, hey, he's getting started. He's testing out the stuff with Lucius Fox, getting his suit figured out. We've got the Batman voice that people have opinions on. I don't mind it.
Can you
And
do an impression real quick?
I'm not wearing hockey pants.
It's pretty good.
It's not great. And I think that towards the end, one of the things that really shines is the relationship between Batman and Commissioner Gordon, or
Yep.
Lieutenant Gordon at that point. And that's kind of what they leave off with. I think that it ends with the perfect note of they kind of tease, hey, we're gonna do the Joker next.
Yep.
But then the whole you never
Explain the tease to me. I didn't quite. Did I miss something?
Yeah, so Gordon basically hands him saying, "Hey, we found this on some sort
The
of
playing card.
body, and it's
Yeah.
the playing card of
Okay.
the Joker."
Yeah. Okay.
Which is why
Yeah.
even if the studio didn't have a sequel greenlit, I think this was Nolan's way of saying, "Hey, I have
Give
more
me a
plans for
chance
this.
to do the Joker, baby,
Give
please.
me the money, and we'll make this happen."
And then we get
Then we get
Mhm.
the most
the
infamous movie,
best,
which we will talk about.
the
in
best
So-
Joker
2 weeks, Mitchell?
performance of all time.
Sorry, what was that?
We get the best Joker performance of all time.
Not in this movie, but
No.
yes, we do.
In next iteration, yes.
All right. I don't have too much more to add about this personally, but Tommy,
No,
you look like you have
This
more
was
to
such
add.
a fun watch. This was so fun to put my Blu-ray in and light up the PS5 at
As
2 a.m.
a
last night. It was fun. It was
as a true comic geek, I love this trilogy because it revitalized Batman. You have the '90s movies they were the movies. I mean, they were just campy as all hell. This really
I
brought
like Batman Returns, but
they were good films, but it was the more campy
different.
version of Batman.
Very
This-
different.
Are
this
you talking
brought-
about the like Batman and Robin, Batman Returns? Is that what you,
I don't like those. The only one of them I like
Okay.
is the one with
you're not
Michelle
talking about?
Pfeiffer
Like the
and Danny
original
DeVito.
ones, right?
Well,
Not the
they were
Adam
all
West
kind of-
ones.
they
Not
all
the Adam
came
West
out around
ones.
the same time frame. They were all in the '90s.
Yeah, that's fair.
With the exception of the Batman, which came out in '89, but still close enough.
Yeah, close enough.
Those four, I grouped them all together only because they were all very campy. They were very low budget.
It's just a
There wasn't
different vibe.
there was nothing to rave about. Whereas this really brought it, obviously the Christopher Nolan tone to it that made people go like, "Oh shit, we can actually have really badass comic movies," and not.
May I say it brought the dark in Dark Knight?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and you brought high level cast members into these films, and it became less of a joke of, oh, these movies are for nerds, to, oh shit, like these are actually good movies.
Mhm.
And I think this really set up what Marvel would bring with Iron Man, where you have the technology kind of aspect to it, and put a lot of money behind a character, and you can make some really cool effects and make a good movie out of it.
Yeah.
So
You got a grade?
I really enjoyed these movies.
Yeah.
You
Great.
got a grade, Tommy?
Let's go 20%.
Okay.
Lower than I thought you were
Low,
going to go.
low,
What keeps
but
you from going
okay.
higher?
Just knowing all the stuff that came after it and the performance that
I knew you
followed.
were going
Colors
to
it.
say that.
We gotta
but-
color it. We gotta color
Okay,
it.
let's say that you were seeing this movie in 2005, right? You saw the movie. You have no idea what comes after that. You have no idea what's to come. What keeps you from going higher?
12-year-old Tommy is giving this like
Dude,
a fucking A+.
Dude,
12-year-old Tommy is fucking walking out the movie going, damn, they did Batman that way?
again, me growing up and still now, I am very easily entertained, and I go, especially any comic book movie. Like, a lot of people are very quick to judge and hate on anything. I will still go into these movies just happy and excited that we're
Right.
alive in a time where these movies come out,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I go back and think, wow, some people died thinking that the pinnacle of Batman movies was, George Clooney,
Wow.
and it's
I
depressing
never
to
thought
I
about
don't
it
even
that
know who
way.
I'd
it's
think
I
of
never
that.
depressing
thought
to think
about it
of that.
that way, but that is really
Whereas we,
depressing.
us
People
in our
so missed
teenage,
out on the Dark Knight trilogy.
whereas us in our teenage years, we got to see kind of the rise of comic culture come into the mainstream media, and we got to see all these crazy movies come out.
And
And
people
again,
like
they won't stand up
love
like, and
CMB
again, it brought a
movies.
lot of
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
controversy.
and now most of them are just trash. But
Well, again, we're also starting to see the decline of that because again, every kind of click has its phase where it phases out. We obviously had the vampire phase
I
that
just think it's so hard to do what the MCU did
yes.
and connect all those movies
But
and
again,
do
they
all the things
they
they did.
set things up. They had a plan, whereas because again,
Right.
Marvel didn't really have much before it, whereas DC you had so many renditions of Batman and Superman that it's like
I
it's
I
kind of
do
done.
think Nolan like set the groundwork for
And
all that.
Spider
Like,
Man kind of had the same thing where you
yeah.
had two Spider Man trilogies, and it's like you bring a third one in. Everybody's like, all right, this has been done. Why are we doing another one? Well, obviously, it proved that.
But then they're able to connect it. Yeah, they're able to
Yeah.
connect all three of them together. And so,
So
I want to live in a world where I'm excited for Batman, the second Batman, Mitchell. And watching this movie
if they ever
made
let us,
me, yeah, they ever let us see it.
and again, this trilogy
This
made that
movie,
possible.
right, yeah, exactly, 100%. And this movie made me go like, oh shit, if they put Mr. Freeze in the second Batman, I
Honestly,
lose my mind.
here's the thing: like everybody hates those characters because of the older movies. I think they could really,
Watch the animated series, and
I
it's
could
100
really
times
see them
better.
doing a Mister Freeze movie and still be because watch if you've ever watched Gotham, that was a great kind
Yep,
of
a good
origin
spin on,
series.
yeah, origin series, good spin on it. I mean,
There's so
honestly,
many.
people who complain about Batman, watch the original Batman animated series, and then watch Batman Beyond, and like watch animated stuff
I would
over.
still love to see a cameo like of. Like, I wish they didn't do the Penguin character because I would have loved to see Danny DeVito come back for a cameo. That would just be funny.
I alternate universe,
Yes, right.
alternate universe. Yeah. I guess I'll give my grade, Mitchell.
Yeah.
God, like I said, firing this up at 2 a.m. last night on the PS5 in my brand new Blu-ray. Man, it just felt different. I was like, I can't wait for this. And then I saw that they had the IMAX, like the original IMAX, like Dark Knight scene, like on the Batman Begins Blu-ray, and I really fought the urge to press that and watch those 6 minutes of the opening scene. So I did it. I'm giving this an A, 90.5, Mitchell. 4.5 stars out of 5. I love this movie. It's not as good as the other two, but it is damn good comic book movie. I love it.
I don't get to be the bad guy
You got
here.
an A plus,
Because
don't you?
no, because the bad guy is Tommy. I'm kind of in the middle of you two, but I'm a little
Mm-hmm.
bit closer to you, Brandon. I gave it an A, 61.04%.
Interesting.
Uh, love this movie. But yeah, I definitely love what's to come a
It
little
has
bit
its
later.
flaws. Like it has flaws, and like I don't think it's like the perfect movie, like you mentioned, Mitchell. But I think it sets up, and now that we know, it sets up two incredible movies
Well,
after.
it sets up The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, and that'll be the next thing that we talk about in 2 weeks because next week, you stupid goose, we're not talking about The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises. We're talking about the top 10, bottom 10, whatever the hell you want. Like my mid three. I'm going to be debuting my mid three as well, the most mid movies
So
of the year. I
pyramid
can't wait to do that.
is that like a reference to like pure meth and like Breaking Bad, like the
Pure,
blue meth? Like I'm just
pure mid. Yes, finally, pure
is
mid.
that a reference to like blue
It's just
meth and Breaking
It's just a
Bad?
meme that I saw
Okay,
that I thought was
okay.
funny. But
All right, fair
yes,
enough.
the
Fair
pure
enough.
mid uh medals will be going out. The bottom 10 and the top 10 Can't wait to do it. It's going to be a loaded podcast. I'm very excited for it.
I need to get on
Everyone,
my bottom 10 watching in the next week.
y'all need to be prepared. Y'all need to be prepared.
Mitchell, I'm gonna get to 90 2024 movies before that podcast. By the way, just so
Do
you're
it.
aware,
Do it.
I'm gonna come with
I
90
would love to
movies.
see that
I'm
happen.
gonna come with a full bottom 10. Night Swim will be on that. Will be on that list.
All right. Can't wait to see it.
Can't wait.
Not Night Swim. No, I will never watch the movie again. But all right. Well, for Tommy Grant, Brandon 2, I'm Mitchell Lee. Get the hell out of here. We're done.